Thank you, Mark. Okay, let me introduce myself. I'm Thomas. My first language isn't British Sign Language. I'm actually Czech. I moved to the UK, England, 15 years ago. And I learned BSL for quite a few years now. I went to college, got some A levels, and then I wanted to make a decision on what I wanted to do. I went to the Job Centre Plus, and I thought they could give me some help and some suggestions. I wasn't really that skilled in anything, and I just wanted to think what I could actually do. So Job Centre Plus helped me apply for a job at Marks and Spencer's at that time. They were very, very useful in terms of what they supported for me, because the application process for Marks and Spencer's was online and it was in English. There were some tests online as well, and I would have found that quite difficult. So Job Centre Plus provided an interpreter for that. And thank you to them. So I was lucky enough to go through that process. They helped me with the application. Like I say, through the interview, I was provided with an interpreter. Struggled initially because it's the first time I'd actually ever been in an interview. Marks and Spencer's sorted out the interpreter, just to let you know. I arrived there for the interview, and I was very lucky that it was quite visual. So as you can imagine, you know, they talked a lot about food, how it was presented, what my thoughts were on what was being presented in terms of what they were selling. You know, how I would check things out of date, that sort of thing. And it was very useful to have an interpreter with me as well. I look back now and think if I didn't have an interpreter, that would have been an impossible barrier for me to come across. Yes, I felt fantastic for being offered the job. So I worked for them on a part-time basis. I also did some voluntary work at the time as well within a deaf unit in a mainstream school with some deaf kids, helping them translate, explain, that sort of thing. So I had a couple of, let's say, career paths on the go. I did that for quite a few years, but I still felt that, you know, I worked at Marks and Spencer's over a year. I was putting things on shelves, and I thought it's a very samey type of thing. It was a little bit monotonous. I wanted to try a few other jobs. So I actually spoke to the manager, again, struggling to communicate. Spoke to Deaf Plus again, and they said they would help me make an application for an access to work budget. So Job Centre Plus did that. And I got my access to work budget was agreed, and an interpreter was brought in. So it just allowed me to be able to speak with my employer, because you've got to remember is Marks and Spencer's don't really know about access to work, so it was down to me to provide that information to them. And it was very useful to have an interpreter in the workplace. I could talk to my colleagues, I could talk with my line manager, they could ask questions of me as well. You know, they've been very impressed over the first 6 months, you know, and they were very thankful. And, you know, they said that I was doing a fantastic job. I was highly skilled. But I was saying, well, actually, I asked the question, is it possible for me to actually do something a little bit different? To try, let me give it a try. So I actually asked the question, could I work frontline working on a till? And they were a little bit worried, and they were saying, well, how will you communicate? And I said, well, you know, I'm happy to have a badge saying that I'm deaf, and let's give you some training. So they give me some one-day training. I had somebody with me, a staff member shadowing me, just to make sure I was doing it properly. And, you know, the manager, my line manager, was actually quite shocked, saying, we didn't believe you could do it, Tom, but you've proved us wrong. And it was amazing. And they were very pleased with me, and I was very pleased. So the manager was, like I said to me, I was very, very happy. So I would have an interpreter on a regular basis. If change of plans, change of shifts, you know, and I worked there for, I think it was about 5 years in the end. And, you know, the manager was trying to offer me promotion within the company. So I became a coordinator. I was offered the post of a coordinator, and I was thinking, well, how am I going to be able to communicate with other staff? Would there be enough budget for me to have interpreters? I thought, well, let's give it a go. So I went on the training as a coordinator, and Marks and Spencer's then give me another job. I was in London at that time. So, and it was actually a new store that had just opened, and I was a coordinator there. They brought interpreters in, there was enough budget for that. So again, I approached the job centre and said, in terms of I need Sign Live or Sign Video. I think it was Sign Video back then, the company that and Access to Work agreed to provide a Sign Video, the online interpreting service. So I had that on a mobile device, so I could speak to the rest of my team, giving them instructions. I would just sign, it would go into the mobile device I was using, and the interpreter would voice it over for me. So we had to check on deliveries, we had to look at restocking. I loved that job. I loved it. It was about 7 years. Then I took a step back and I thought, well, actually, I think I've had enough of this. I think I need to try something a little bit different. I'd been doing some voluntary work, as I've already said, in a mainstream school. Been doing some caring there as well. And I thought, I want a new challenge for myself. I want to learn something new. So I applied for a job at the deaf school. I thought about applying for the job at the deaf school, and then I did, and I was successful. I became a TA, teaching assistant. Very, very different to what I'd done before. The environment was very different. It was a lot nicer because everybody was signing. Communication was a lot easier. Sometimes I was on training and it was delivered in sign language. And as I went through my career path through there, I went through safeguarding, all the different policies and procedures. As a TA, interpreters were brought in as well to make sure that communication was provided. I'm trying to think how, it was 5 years. It was 5 years, I think, I worked at the deaf school. And I made a decision, I wanted to do something different again. So now I've become a carer. So what that entails is, the person I care for is actually deaf with additional disabilities. And they have 24-hour care, 7 days a week. So it is a difficult job. It is difficult to communicate with them. Because they are very different. We have doctors, we have certain specialists coming in. I use a company called Sign Live to help me communicate with people. I have interpreters coming into the workplace as well. That it was difficult before we had online interpreting like Sign Video or Sign Live. So I also have face-to-face interpreters coming in as well, plus an online interpreting service, and it's really, really good. It makes you feel confident. You feel you can achieve, and that's what I would say to you guys watching this evening. Roll up your sleeves, do some voluntary work, and don't give up.